Okay. Well, welcome everybody. We are glad to be here. I'm here with Danni.
Hello, everybody.
So we are going to be doing actually kind of a follow-up to last week's talk about imposter syndrome. We've got so many comments on that, emails, DMs. We had continued discussions about it in our next step class. So I think it is a very relevant topic to a lot of people. I do want to say with a caveat that it is possible that Colleen joins us today. I don't know if she has the internet is part of where she's at with it. Colleen is currently on a ceremonial tour through Egypt with Karen Hefner, and yes, Katie, I see your chat with Jane Bell. And Amir, and I'm not sure of his last name, but he is the Egyptologist that's with him as well. But they are currently traveling on the Nile. So I don't know if she'll have the internet strength to be able to join us. But if she does, we will definitely be going ahead and stopping this talk, and we'll continue it at another time and, see what Colleen is up to and the different things that she might share with us. So just so you know about that. And then also just a few announcements. We do have classes coming up in October. Colleen is teaching Karuna Reiki in October. We are teaching Animal Reiki 1 and 2 and Animal Reiki Master in October. Colleen, myself, and Sue Strong. And so you can go to Reiki Lifestyle to find out more about those classes. All amazing. Then Colleen is teaching in Hawaii, another Karuna class in November. She is teaching with William Rand at his house in Hana, Hawaii. And it's a 7-day trip. So you have the Karuna class, but you also get to spend time in the amazing land in Hana with different adventures and different sites, and just spending a lot of time in that kind of energetic Reiki trip while also being able to, learn Karuna Reiki. So you can learn more about that. That one is at reiki.org. And I think when you go to reiki.org, it's just right up on the top. So you can click that link. And then the other thing that I would like to just announce is that we will be opening up our wait list soon for our next step Reiki classes in 2024 and our Explore the 12 Heavens class in 2024. And what those are they are year-long monthly courses that are taught by Colleen and myself. Next Step Reiki is really about advanced Reiki training skills, where we learn how to journey with Reiki. We learn the spirit reveal technique in year 2, and then we learn how to channel it out loud in year 3. So we'll be sending more out about all of that. It helps develop your intuition, your skills as a Reiki person. We have people that are taking it for personal reasons. We have people that are taking it professional reasons, and we'll be talking more about that. So I don't need to go into it yet, but we'll send out an email to let you know that our wait list is opening. Also, Explore the 12 Heavens is going and journeying to the different levels of consciousness. And that is the first year we've taught that class. Well, second, we taught a 6-month version of it before. So, and it's been really fun. And that's more of a class for kind of exploration, as opposed to you receive a tremendous amount of healing and empowerment in that class as well. But it's more of an exploratory class where Next Step is more of like really in-depth skill training. So again, we'll be talking more about that. So I think those are our announcements. Oh, one more announcement. We released the podcast today with Justin Stein. And Justin Stein's book is coming out on the 30th. So I think it's coming out this Saturday. It's been released. We talk all about that on the podcast. Many of you that are already watching this or listening to this already listened to the podcast or watch it. But if you don't and you join us live here, definitely go and take a listen or watch that one. It's super fascinating. He's coming out with a book mostly about Mrs. Takata and the time period where there's not a whole lot of record. He's a PhD in Asian and Eastern studies outside of British Columbia, or in British Columbia University there. And his book is all about kind of those years in between where we hear of the early life of Mrs. Takata and her time from Japan and Hawaii, and then the later years of her life. But there's this time frame in between that there wasn't a lot known about that in different historical aspects of it. So super fascinating episode, and definitely recommend you listen to that. And then also check out his book too. That's obviously going to go into a lot more detail. So it was very fun. October 10th on Amazon. Yeah, I'll take a look at the links that we have in the podcast, Kaz, because he did say that there is some other places that you might be able to get it. So including he's got a website listed, or his academia website listed. So I'll take a look at that.
Do you want me to check Amazon again?
No, that's okay. Yeah, just
okay.
No, there's a lot of information about him in the description of the YouTube or the podcast. So you can go and check that out, and he's going to have the most updated information. So, all right. So today's topic is a follow-up, like I said, to last week's imposter syndrome, because we got so much feedback that I really wanted to continue the conversation. Also, we had conversations in kind of every single one of our next step classes about it, and how, we had follow-up conversations and questions about it. It was our Q&A this week or last week. So anyways, kind of one of the biggest questions, and we talked briefly in each one of the categories about, well, what do you do about it? And how do you use Reiki to, help you move through it, help you to move forward as well from this kind of imposter syndrome that can create this freeze scenario around either professional or personal parts to our Reiki practice. So that's what we'll be talking about today. And we're also going to be doing a Reiki journey to help with that, because that is one of the things that we can do is listen to guided meditations, listen to guided Reiki journeys to help us navigate our own, to help us with that. Because sometimes it's hard when you're in self Reiki. Sometimes it's hard to know what that is for ourselves. Sometimes it's hard to have the clarity for ourselves with it. And so having this outside perspective, having this outside voice can be a helpful piece in helping us move through it. So that is one of the big things that is super helpful, though, isn't that? It's listening to Reiki energy and having the Reiki energy support you to move through it. And here's the thing about Reiki energy is that we have it to help us in the spiritual pieces to it. We have it to help us in the emotional pieces. We know that it helps lead us to wellness. We know that it helps lead us to the healthiest version of ourselves. We know that it helps lead us to our healed selves, even if that's complementary. So maybe we are using Reiki energy along with therapy practices. So we are moving more and more into a healed version of ourselves. And all of that helps move us through these times where things are really challenging. And imposter syndrome can be one of those times, especially in the beginning of our Reiki practices. So as we experienced last week, one of the things that Reiki can do is help us in those blocks, help us in those limiting beliefs. It manifested last week in our chakras, which makes a lot of sense because those are places where we can hold limiting beliefs. There are places where we can hold trauma in our body, in our spirit, in our mental, emotional state. And we know that Reiki helps to release that and also to replace it with our fully empowered selves, our authentic self, all of those places where we are being our revealed self. So we know that that is a big part of it. But also Reiki helps us in our logical mind. It helps us in our practicalities. And I think that's one of the places that it's talked about, but it's maybe not the first thing that we consider when we are talking about Reiki energy. We kind of go directly to that. We kind of go directly to that kind of other side of it. Let's even call it the right brain side of it, where we are in that spiritual side of it. But also that we can use it for our logical mind. So bringing in the symbols, one of the places that is really helpful, one of the symbols that's really helpful for this is the mental emotional symbol, or SHK, that we can invite that symbol in and then go into our practical, logical things that we need to do. So, for example, I will bring this in when I need to write an outline about something, which is a perfect example because I like to write outlines. It's a way that my intuition works for me. I like to do things like PowerPoint slides. It's a way that my intuition works for me. I like to do Excel spreadsheets, kind of those logical things. You don't have to like to do those things for you to, for that mental emotional symbol to work, or for your logical mind to kind of kick in and help you navigate your next steps when you're in this process of releasing limiting beliefs, releasing imposter syndrome, so that you can take your next step. It can be that maybe you draw or paint, and that's the way that your intuition is going to manifest for you, or that your next steps, or that your logical mind is going to manifest for you. And that's okay. We all have different ways that works for us, but that we can go into that and it can help us to, outline, okay, here's what I need to do, or here are the goals that I want to set for myself, and that Reiki supports that. So for example, I knew this morning that this is what I wanted to talk about, that this is the subject that was coming through. And so normally I do this sooner, but I've had a whole busy life. My kid was sick yesterday, stayed home from school. My husband's been out of town. So, I've been kind of in solo mode here. And so I haven't had a lot of time or space to really focus in and listen to Reiki about what wants to come through. Because that's the other thing about doing this work in this way, is it sets us into our higher minds. It sets us into our higher self. And it also is listening to the universe, listening to spirit, listening to Reiki to help us navigate our path. So the fact that there wasn't okay, ABC, how I'm going to, what are the subjects that want to come through about this? I knew it was like what the next level or next step of imposter syndrome, but I like to have kind of an idea of what I'm going to be talking about, what I'm going to say. And so I called in that mental emotional symbol. I said, help me out here. I'm on a little bit of a time crunch as well. And I want to have an actual outline of what I want to talk about. And so one of the places that, these messages can come in for many of us, it can be in the shower. It can be while driving. For me, it can be while cooking. Where I will have this kind of download or these ideas drop in, and it gives me the clarity that I need. And so that's what I did before my shower this morning. I asked the mental emotional symbol to come in and help me in my clarity with this. And that's where the clarity came in. And then I was able to get onto my computer and write an outline about kind of just the different points. I mean, it's mostly channeled, but I want to make sure that there's certain points that I'm covering in this. And that's true for so much of our work. Anytime we are, talking about our next step classes or any of our work, any presentations, anything like that, we are listening to the Reiki energy to help us in our clarity and what the actual energy wants to say, what our higher minds of us want to say. It's how we wrote the Animal Reiki Manual, is that we would go into deep Reiki spaces, into deep journey spaces, so that then we could translate that into an actual practical thing with next steps, with goals, with timelines, all of those kinds of things that are true about actually anchoring, manifesting, doing on this planet. Because we've got the spiritual side, but then there's the reality that we live in a physical world. And there are these steps generally that we have to take to actually make things happen. So it's just this awareness that Reiki works in this way too. Also, that I talked about this quite a bit in this last part about how Reiki helps us with our intuition development. So what's next? How do we listen to it? How do we do this? It's all well and good because you have practice at it. But how do I do this? How do I listen to Reiki? How do I learn to do that? And one of the things that is really helpful and was really helpful for me, because I am kind of left brain, is that developing your intuition is a skill that you can learn. It's a process. It's a skill about how to actually hear you, how to actually hear your intuition. So that download that I talked about in the shower about what wanted to come through, I wasn't always like that. That's something that I have learned how to do over time. Some people are naturally like that. Some people have natural gifts and skills and abilities. And I think most of us have natural aptitudes towards it. It's a part of the reason that we were called to Reiki, but it is also something that you can learn how to actually hear it and how to actually then put it into process or the doing side of things. And so there are ways to develop your intuition. First of all, knowing that downloads outside of Reiki happen very often. When we are in self-Reiki, when we're saying yes to Reiki, when we're going through this spiritually guided life force energy process, that it opens up our insights in all places in our whole life, because we are moving into a holistic form of ourselves. And that includes our the intuitive side of us, even that mental, emotional side of us, right? That higher mind, that divine mind. So it does come in other places. And it's about kind of knowing when it's different. It's about recognizing it. Also trusting that that's what it is. It's those eureka moments, those aha moments that, we can get. Could just be a sentence. It could also be this whole entire download around an answer that you've been waiting to come in, or maybe you didn't know that you needed to come in. And so you might find patterns in different places that they could come in. So sometimes that is, like I said, the shower, driving are really common ones that people talk about. For me, it's cooking. Other people find that it's in that state between sleep and awake. Dreams, those are more of, I would consider those a little bit different because those are more purposeful. It's more common. That's almost like a Reiki journey or a Reiki state, where when I'm talking about these things outside of that, this is more in like our kind of waking mind, that those downloads can come in. So really also trusting yourself, maybe even writing them down if you can. Obviously not while you're driving, but if you can write them down afterwards, it can be really helpful. Sometimes what I'll do is I will put them in my phone notes, my like voice recording notes. Like if I don't want to lose it, but I can't write it down, that's a really good place to do. So self Reiki, the external aids such as cards, pendulums can help you develop your intuition, classes, and then guided journeys and meditations. So when the reason that the intuition development is coming up is because it leads you into a different level of trust. And it also helps you to develop that clarity when you need that clarity. Because a lot of times imposter syndrome is that place where it's like, I just need to know what to do next. And then I just need the guts to actually take that leap, to take that step. And that's that place that many of us get into, or maybe we're in this place where we have so many different things coming in that we don't know what to do next. And we call that the messy middle, where there's so many of these different options or opportunities, or maybe it's like, well, I could do this. What if it's that? What if that's my next step? What if that's my next step? And all of these different things that can also be a place where we can get into that causes that kind of freeze, or causes that I'm not good enough, or causes that I just don't know where to go next. And Danni, I see you maybe reaching for the unmute, so go ahead.
Yeah, I was I had some input. So after last week, we talked about this. And for the last couple of weeks, I've been going through a transition myself, personal transition, very excited. And it kind of all fell through the cracks. Almost everything just fell through the cracks, which I know, being in the messy middle, it will all be okay. However, last week, I had sessions already scheduled. And so I was like, okay, how can I, again, I said this last week too, it's like, how can I show up for these people? And when I'm kind of like all over the place. And so I kept those sessions, and it worked out wonderfully. I mean, it worked out so much for the client, because again, I'm not doing anything. I have to remind myself to step aside, especially when I'm feeling overwhelmed or on that loop. Like I think Colleen calls it the hamster wheel or something, and just to get off that and do it by doing that and taking a pause and just inviting Reiki. And oh my gosh, I mean, for myself, I would invite Reiki. I wasn't even out of bed. I'm like, okay, I know this. Let's bring it all in. Let's remember. Let's bring in the symbols. Gosh, the mental and emotional symbol has been very big for me as well the last couple of weeks. And I just know better. And again, like the next step classes did actually help me with that, because I'm like, it would be really easy to get into a deep dive, but I do know that there's a way of getting out of it and trusting. And just one of the things besides pendulums and cards, which I love so much, like little tarot readings, I love. But what really helped me out, especially the last week, was those of you in this room right now, is the people that I've met over the years, either in this circle or in the next step classes or in the Reiki classes, that intuitionally, you guys got a hold of me. You're like, hey, I'm just thinking of you. Hey, I'm going to send you this card. Or I'm just, hope you have a good day. And it was so interesting, the timing. And you know who you are in this group. I'd be like, that was perfect timing. Because I'm like, okay, just relax. and they're like, oh, is this sending Reiki? And so it's really wonderful community. And that imposter syndrome, yes, it's there. And just saying again that the sessions were great, not only for the client, but for me to step back and just be in that energy and just get really grounded myself.
Wow, thank you, Danni.
Mm-hmm.
It's really true. Well, and that actually also brings to another thing, is that Reiki can also help you to take that risk because you do have community behind you. There are times where you just have to take the leap and trust that Reiki is there. And that if also something doesn't work out, that eventually there's a reason for that, even if that is hard in the time frame. And it's all easy to say when you're not in that time frame. Oh yeah, in retrospect, but when you're in the time frame, it sucks. But that Reiki can help you on the small levels to take a risk, and on the big levels to take a risk. And sometimes that is what you need to do with imposter syndrome, is you just have to take the leap. So, and the other thing to know is that sometimes it's okay if it doesn't work out. So as an example of that, in our business, Colleen and I created this whole Reiki web store with all of these things, put a lot of time and effort and some investment into it, and built a whole thing on Reiki Lifestyle, which at the time was all custom. It wasn't just like we had Shopify, and I mean, it was a whole thing. It was a whole thing, and a lot of time into that, and it didn't work out. And it's good. We know now, that's the thing. And there was a reason why it didn't work out, because it all took us in a different direction. And that's okay. And we took kind of a risk, and I don't like to use the word failure, but it was a fail, and it's okay that it was a fail. And we know now why it was a fail, because Reiki was leading us in a different direction, that having that space cleared out to do other things was a part of the reason. And at the same time, we also found out that we don't want to ship things. It's not something that we like to ship. We didn't want to store it. We didn't like any of that process as a part of it. And so it was something that we learned. And also it allowed us to let it go. Like there wasn't ever that wondering. And then actually from that is where we had the time and the space for the next step classes, which we love and are super passionate about. And also it gave us the time and space. Colleen and Sue were already working on the Animal Reiki manual, but because of that, we were able to move into an entirely different place with that, both of which things is what was meant for us. And we shifted directions, and we're people, and we are going to have interests, and we're going to have Reiki show us the way. If you listen to our podcast that was released recently with Faye Johnston, she was so authentic and so honest about where she's at. She's had a thriving Reiki practice, has written 3 books, all of this. And right now she's in a pause, and she's listening to where she's going next. And so it's okay for that process to happen too. Or that, maybe she's had success and wanting to go a different direction, or maybe there is something that didn't work out, right? Maybe there's like, well, that didn't work. And so you stop and you listen, and you allow yourself to be guided in a different direction. Sometimes what part of the answer is going into either that eagle view, which we have journeys and stuff like this. We usually do this at the beginning of the year to help us with what our next year looks like. But we sometimes it's helpful to go into that eagle view. And what that means is you have eagle view and you have mouse view. And for those of you that have been with us for a long time, you know that that is a part of what we talk about, the journey that we do, guided journey around it, to help us. to clarify what's that big picture, because obviously eagle, when it's flying, can see the entire big picture. And sometimes that's what we need, because especially if you're one of those imposter syndromes, like the perfectionist, and there's one other too, it's like you can just get caught up in the details, right? And that can feel like you're just on that hamster wheel, that mouse wheel, that you are just caught up in the details and can't see the forest for the trees. And then, so you need that eagle view. You need to be able to say, okay, wait, step back. Where am I going with this? What is the big picture with this? And sometimes you have that big picture, but what's overwhelming and where we can get caught up in imposter syndrome is we can get like, I don't know what my next step is. Here's what I want. Here's my big goal, but I can't see what my next step is. So you need that mouse view. You need like, okay, I need that next detail. Where am I going? I need clarity around this. And when we're talking about imposter syndrome, sometimes the big picture is way too overwhelming. And we just need to know, okay, what do I need to do next? What is just the one next thing that I need to do right now? So both can be applicable to us. Sometimes it can be both at the same times. Sometimes, we need to switch into one of the eagle view or the mouse view so that we can figure out where we're going next and what we're doing next. And that can be a really helpful tool to help us to come out of that imposter syndrome so that you know where you're going next. And like I said, sometimes it's the big picture. Other times it is the really small picture. And then the other thing that can be really helpful for you is just, helping you to build your confidence. So what are the tools that you can do that? I know we talked a little bit about this last week. Affirmations, positive self-talk. That can be challenging for us. That, we might need a journal for that. Sometimes we just need to start by one written by somebody else. Lots of people have daily affirmations, weekly affirmations, and you just have to kind of say it to yourself until you start to believe it, because eventually that does start to happen. Is that, okay, I am amazing and gifted, those kinds of things. And maybe you don't believe it at first, but after you use Reiki to help that, release the places that those beliefs aren't allowing to kind of penetrate your being, release those places that need to be let go of where you don't believe that about yourself. That is a really helpful way that Reiki can support that process. And then eventually you do start to see that within yourself. So if you can't have your own affirmations right now, use other people's. That's okay. Positive self-talk, same thing. Use other people's until you can have your own in a journal, a daily practice, Post-it notes around your mirror. Things like that can be really helpful to help you to build your confidence. And if it's around imposter syndrome and Reiki, go into specific things around that. Maybe in your life, you're okay, but when it comes to Reiki, for some reason, there's fear there. Well, use positive affirmations or affirmations and positive self-talk around those subjects. It doesn't have to be, every subject. It can be really specific. I have a voice that people want to hear on social media. Or, there's people out there for me in my community that want to know and learn about Reiki, or people who need Reiki. So you can put those around or put them in a journal and send Reiki to it as well. That's the other thing you can do. You can send Reiki to the positive affirmations or the positive self-talk. And that's also going to be another thing that's going to be helpful for them to, for you to start to embody them. So that's another thing that you can do to help you build confidence. And Reiki helps with that process. I would say with that process, all the symbols are going to help, but the power symbol, I think, is going to be a really helpful one for that. Because power symbol is all about your empowerment. It is all about that kind of self energy around that. So those are some of the ways that you can help move yourself out of imposter syndrome. Classes can help. Again, classes can be extremely healing, releasing the places that you need to release in order to also, if you feel like you need more training to help you in your confidence, that's something else that you can look at as classes, and in Reiki classes. Also, other types of spiritual classes, and then guided journeys and guided meditations. Just like last week, we'll do one here, just like this week, in ways that you can release that imposter syndrome, build your confidence, develop your intuition so that you can hear when Reiki is talking to you, and that higher self is talking to you, and just take that leap. Move through, just take that one next step that is going to help you, because sometimes that next step is then that snowball happens. Like sometimes that is all you need, is just to take that one next step, and then everything else starts to fall into place. Go ahead, Danni.
I was just going to say too, and I don't know if we learned this in the first level of Next Step, but the automatic writing really has, I use my intuition, and my confidence is so much more now. So for all of my sessions, which are mostly distance sessions, I will do an automatic writing or a session before I meet with a person. So like maybe 15 minutes before, and I go and I just start seeing what comes up. And it's so interesting to me because I typically don't know the person. And so it's so interesting to me to see what the intuition brings in. And Reiki is, again, doing everything. But I really like the automatic writing for me. And then what I do when I write the notes, I send those notes to the client afterwards. I take a picture of it and send it. And it could mean something or not mean something. But I think it's so far been really interesting. So just another tool.
Yeah, thank you so much, Danni. And automatic writing or free writing is there are crossover between journaling. They are, kind of considered slightly different. So automatic writing there's no evaluation with what you're writing. You're just simply putting the pen to paper and just allowing to flow through what flows through. And that is a huge tool to help develop your intuition with it as well. And I think, part of the reason that developing intuition kind of came into this talk is because there is a certain level of trust that you have when you have these things as part of your intuition just come through and support you, because you start to be able to hear that higher self, which helps with the imposter syndrome, because you know that what is coming through for you is, kind of from this divine guidance from your higher self about what you need and your clarity and what you need next. And even with developed intuition, sometimes you still need help with, what's next. Sometimes you still can't see the forest through the trees, especially if you're going through really big stuff. That's a time too when it can be really helpful to have, external things, sessions from others, cards, pendulums, guided meditations, things like that can be really helpful when it's hard to see clearly for yourself because there's so much external noise. So anyways, just a little bit more of ways to use Reiki to help you move through imposter syndrome, and also Reiki helping you with that, taking that leap. Just bringing it in, self Reiki with that. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. We're going to go ahead.